question from the audience, and Dr. Karlin, you can take this one if you would like. How has the contentious political environment in Washington affected the DoD's ability to get resources and operate?
Well, unfortunately, the story with DoD's resources and operating budget is an older one than this contentious political environment over the last year or so. Effectively, the defense budget has been going in an unhelpful trajectory. So we've had a number of things like continuing resolutions, which means you're not allowed to kind of start new contracts. We've had the challenge of sequestration, which is mandated across the board cuts. And frankly, you know, for those of you business people in the audience, I suspect you're probably scratching your head and saying, that seems like such a silly way to run a place. But of course, as we know, the US system was designed to constrain action, and Congress holds the power of the purse. But there are some really profound costs to this challenge. You know, on national security, I think actually we have a whole lot more civil debate and actually agreement. I think on the whole, most folks understand that the last 70 years have looked pretty good for America, and we would like to continue them. I think most folks would reject the arguments that have been made about pulling back, but we do need the resources and funding to pay for it. Now, one of the other challenges, of course, is putting money where we want the money. So effectively, right now, the US military actually really needs to focus on modernization. You've heard me and John, for example, talk about high-end threats from Russia or China.
Dr. Gholz, sorry to interrupt. What do you think about that? That we need to focus on modernization?
Oh, and modernization. So I think...
Just very briefly, because we have another question for you.
Sure. It's a... modernization is an important issue for the United States, but I think the most important kind of modernization is to change the trajectory of the kind of defense spending that we have. So we are actually spending quite a lot on defense, despite the kinds of challenges and the planning problems that Mara talks about, right? So we are still spending more on defense today than in essentially in real dollars, essentially all the years of the Cold War, right? So we are spending a tremendous amount. We may not be spending it as effectively as Mara would like, but I would say the reason we're spending so much is because we're buying very high-end technologies and very difficult technologies to enable us to play the away game, to constantly project power. Projecting power is super expensive, whereas being on defense, if we shifted the kinds of investment we were making to stress a defensive posture as opposed to an offensive posture, we would be able to achieve our strategic goals of defending our way of life and even help many of our friends without spending as much as we do.
So if I could just add 2 points there. First of all, as a percent of GDP, we're spending about 4%. At the height of the Cold War, it was about 10%.
That's true.
Moreover, actually, much of what we're spending our money on isn't those super cool high-end systems. It's people. We spend about half of the US military budget on people. Indeed, the price per soldier has gone up about 60% since 9/11. I think a lot of folks would like the idea of spending more on modernization, as some of us have talked about. The challenge being it's very hard to help Congress understand why that's so critical.